a.m. on Thursday, December 3rd, 2020. I would ask everyone to please bear with me because I'm obliged to read a rather lengthy opening statement. Good morning and welcome to the December 3rd, 2020 Board of Assessor meeting. As Chair of the Board of Assessors, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the Governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the Governor's Emergency Order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-4, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the Governor's Emergency Order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom through the city's IT department for this electronic meeting. All members of the Board of Assessors have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen into this meeting through dialing the following number, 929-205-6099. Once again, that number is 929-205-6099. And using the meeting ID number 897-4674-4167. And once again, the meeting ID number is 897-4674-4167 and password of 328688. And once again, that number is 328688. The public may also view this meeting on Comcast Channel 16. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public postings. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at nashua.newhampshire.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall and the National Public Library. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or channel 16, please call 603-821-2049 and they will help you connect. And once again, that number is 603-821-2049. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, the reason they are not able to attend the meeting in person, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. So I'll begin by calling the roll, taking attendance. Mr. Early.
This is Robert Early, member of the Board of Assessors. I am following the Governor's executive order and joining the meeting remotely from home. There is no one in the room with me.
Mr. Bergeron.
This is Paul Bergeron, a member of the Board of Assessors. I'm following the Governor's advisory and joining the meeting remotely from home. There is no one in the room with me.
And I'm Daniel Hansberry, a member of the Board of Assessors. I'm joining the meeting remotely following the Governor's advisory, and there is no one in the room with me. Please direct all testimony to this board and not to anyone in the audience. If you have questions, they are to be directed to the board, and we will do our best to get them answered. When directing testimony to this board, please announce your name clearly for the record and your address for that matter, I would add. Ms. Brown, are there any changes to today's agenda?
There are no changes.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions before we begin? All right, seeing none. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the minutes from the Board of Assessors meeting held on Thursday, November 19th, 2020, accept them and place them on file?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any errors or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented will indicate their preference through roll call. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion to accept the minutes as presented is adopted. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the non-public session meeting minutes, which was held during the Board of Assessors meeting on Thursday, November 19th, 2020, accept them and place them on file.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Are there any errors or corrections? Seeing none, I will call the roll. So if you're in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, signify by saying yes. If you're opposed, signify by saying no. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Non-public meeting minutes are adopted as presented. At this time, I will recognize Director Kimberly Kleiner, who's in charge of administrative services and part of her responsibilities oversight of the assessing department. Director Kleiner.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I will share the screen on the document that I am referring to as I speak. So most of what I am going to discuss today is also included in the Assessing Monthly Monitor newsletter that was issued on Monday and can be found on our website. The assessing departments received a few questions from residents, and I believe members of the board may have as well, about the sales ratio study. I think we've discussed this a number of times. The sales ratio study is due to the NHDRA December 15th. Now, an extension could be requested. If you remember, we did so last year. At this time, no decision has been made to request an extension. And if I was to do so, I would submit that to the Department of the New Hampshire DRA for approval prior to any comment that I would make. So I want to ensure you that we have not made any decision at this time or submitted anything to the DRA for approval. Also included in the newsletter is information regarding the abatement process, which I think we discussed at length last meeting. So we strongly encourage residents to fill out the form, print it, sign it. Applications must be sent. Residents may mail it or leave it in the city drop-off box located at the Elm Street entrance. Today, we're bringing forward the residential abatement questionnaires for the board's approval. This is very similar to what we did for 2019 last spring after the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. The assessors, Mr. Norman and I have reviewed this. Should the COVID-19 pandemic situation change, we all hope it will, during the spring or early summer, we can revisit the policy at this time. The contractor that's hired to conduct the renovations at City Hall has made significant progress within the assessing department. So currently we believe, and we are scheduling with our members, furniture to be brought back into the space by the end of this month. IT will need to move systems back, and there's a process and a bunch of work that needs to be done so that they can reconnect all of our systems. And then we can look at moving employees back in January. We're still waiting for lead times on the customer service area. A custom storefront is being built and provided by an outside vendor. We're waiting for the lead time on when that will be delivered. So it may be that assessing staff is back prior to us being able to open to the public and serve customers, but I will keep you informed and hopefully have more at your December 17th meeting. Last meeting, I informed you that the GIS department's working on that new sales tool They're working very hard on it, excuse me. The tool will allow residents to access more information, and we realize that they may be interested in this information for any abatement that they will be applying for. We're in our final phase trying to integrate the tool to our website. We apologize for any delay, but hopefully this should be within the next few days. Also, I have provided the board with the recent status update from Vision Government Solutions. They're 59% complete with exterior inspections. This information can also be found on our website. At the Board of Assessors meeting on December 17th, Mike Torillo, June Perry, and Steve Whalen will provide the board with an update. They are the project team from Vision. And that's all I have for you today.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for Director Kleiner?
No,
Director Kleiner, have we been given our equalization rate yet?
No, we have not.
When does that normally come out?
Not till generally February, March. It's way too early as of this point.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so new business, Kimberly Kleiner, Rex Norman, discussion of temporary use of abatement questionnaire due to the COVID-19 pandemic for 2020 abatements. Director Kleiner, who's going to address this? Are you, Mr. Norman, or both of you?
I'm going to let Mr. Norman talk to it unless you have any specific questions. And I apologize, I'm still trying to, as you can see, I am not in the office. And I'm trying to stop my screen from sharing.
While you're working on that, we could have Mr. Norman go ahead. Are you comfortable with that, Director Kleiner?
That's fine, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Norman, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much. We do have, you'll see in your packets, copies of the mailing, the letter that's going to go out to residents who have filed for abatements. The letter itself is a form letter, effectively directing the giving information about the procedures of abatements. One is that with the COVID-19 events, how we have to now screen these abatements. One of the things that will be included with that, you'll see, is a questionnaire. That's critical in that the first step in any abatement conversation is why do you feel there's an error in your assessment? And typically we find that it could just be something as simple as a data entry error, something that may have been mistakenly put into their system. Either they have incorrect bedroom counts, bathroom counts. The assessor believed they had a finished basement when they don't. There may be some other features about the home that clearly, if we correct them, we'll find that their assessment will be more in line with the assessment that they believe to be fair and reasonable. In this case, we are relying on the applicant to look through the questionnaire. As you see in the questionnaire, we are asking them some basic questions just to verify that we have the style of the home, the number of stories, number of living units, whether we know it to be a single family home or whether it may have an accessory apartment or other units. We go into other physical features, which I think it's a good double check to make sure that people, they've upgraded their siding. Maybe they haven't. Maybe we listed their siding as something that was considered to be a value added item, brick as opposed to vinyl or something of that nature. Once they have completed this application, rather questionnaire, they return it to the assessing staff. And I think, I skipped past the part that it's important to note that an abatement will be assigned to the various assessors. The assessor then will carry forward with that abatement until its completion. That way they have a point of contact in the assessing office. And they have someone they can either communicate with via email or telephone. Once the assessor receives the questionnaire, they're going to review the information, see if the information does impact the assessed values, and then proceed further. Of course, in most abatement applications, I think the other question is, how is the market value related to the assessment? Of course, we will be looking at the assessment ratio. As you pointed out, we typically don't find the assessment ratio until sometime early spring. So, the first step in these cases will be to identify data errors. The second will be to determine whether the market value is at the ratio is in line with the assessed values. So, you'll see that included in the packet is an electronic version of this questionnaire. We feel that gives a little ease of access, and to the folks that have the ability to proceed electronically, it'll just make the whole process a little bit easier, a little more user friendly, we hope. With that, I'll ask any questions.
Are there questions for Mr. Norman?
No,
I just have one, Chairman Hansberry.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Norman, one of the sections of the abatement questionnaire asks the homeowner to rate the condition of certain rooms like bathrooms and kitchens as good, average, fair, or other. Is there any explanation that should be provided to the homeowners so that they understand what each of those terms of condition might be defined as?
I think you're correct, and it's a good observation. I know that as assessors, we tend to use these terms on a regular basis, and we think, we feel we understand them quite well. You're right that every day homeowner might not understand what the differences are. Typically, it would be a good place to have a little more explanation. I mean, average is typically, everyone in the neighborhood has the same condition of property. You figure that's average. Good, as assessors, we feel that that's a little above that average. Maybe I think if we provided examples, quality of the quality of the finishes might be a difference between good and average. Whereas fair, for instance, would be something that it has not really met the current modern and standards that you see. For instance, I give an example of fair might be a laminates as opposed to a stone finish on your countertops. I think that's a good observation. I like that. I think it would be good to supplement this somewhat with some explanations to that.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
no,
Mr. Norman, on special features, a little over halfway down the page, it says includes fireplaces, dormers, permanent generators, etc. So if somebody has a full shed dormer, for example, that's something that would be reported. The city would not have that in their records.
Well, I think, again, that's an observation that it sort of skipped past us a little bit. I think the dormer would be if you have an attic, for instance, that has a dormer with that affords some additional space, which it wouldn't be considered maybe living area, but maybe it's space that you can utilize. I think that may be what they're referring to here. Generally, what I would refer to a special feature are those other items you're talking about, fireplaces, permanent generators. There may be some other items that we could have listed as examples that we would see in the city of Nashua's assessing model. I think maybe a couple more examples might be helpful here.
Okay. All right. Are there any further questions?
No.
no,
Director Kleiner, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
No, thank you, Chair. I think Mr. Norman handled it all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Norman. All right, at this time, I would recognize Greg Turgis for an in-house correction. Mr. Turgis?
Morning, Chair. Thank you. In front of you today, I have a in-house correction for a listing error on One Cardinal Circle. It was listed as having a canopy in the back. It does not have one. We have verified it with the homeowner and through aerial photography. Just straight up data correction. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Mr. Turgis?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I had one question. Is a canopy does that cover anything that's over the deck, like a roof or something that's less permanent than a roof?
Yeah, it needs to, for it to be a canopy, it needs to be a permanent structure. So, for example, if it's a rollout canopy that you can go back, put out for sunblock and then
Right.
roll it back up, that is not a canopy. Canopy would have to be permanently set up.
But like corrugated, that fiberglass, that would cover as a
Right.
canopy, okay.
Right, if it's a covered area, yes, it does not matter what the material is, it's a covered area.
Okay. No other questions?
Thank you. Any further questions from anyone? All right, so is there a motion to approve the assessment reduction for the property located at One Cathedral Circle to $437,300?
447,300.
Right. I didn't say that. Okay, sorry, it's 447,300. Sorry if I missed it.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, is there any discussion? All right, seeing that, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Does that conclude your report, Mr. Turgis?
It does. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, at this time, I would recognize Mr. Mandiel, who has some supplemental bills. First, Mr. Mandiel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Hansberry. I have two supplemental tax bills to present for manufactured housing set up after April 1st. The first is for 14 Oak Grove Trail. It is assessed at $119,700. And the city recommends approval of a supplemental tax bill of $948.48. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Mandiel?
No.
No.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve the supplemental tax bill for the property located at 14 Oak Grove Trail for $948.48?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Mandiel?
The second is also for manufactured housing located at 11 Skyview Drive. It is assessed at $149,800. The city recommends approval of the supplemental tax bill of $1,187.84. Does anyone have any questions?
Are there any questions for Mr. Mandiel?
No.
No.
Mr. Mandiel, just out of curiosity, are we still finding that manufactured housing is appreciating considerably?
At this time it is, yes.
It's still happening. Okay. All right. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the supplemental tax bill for the property located at 11 Skyview Drive for $1,187.84?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? All right, I will call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Does that conclude your report, Mr. Mandiel?
It does, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Unfinished business. Okay, public comment. Before we begin public comment, I think there needs to be a clarification as far as the role of the Board of Assessors, as far as the scope of their duties and their responsibility. And it's important for the public to know that the board does not have authority over personnel in the assessing department. We are not in charge of the hiring, retention, promotion, disciplining, or termination of personnel. Secondly, there have been times in the past where people have made comments about the City Corporation Counsel's office. And I would point out that we have absolutely no authority or responsibility for the personnel in the City Corporation Counsel's office. And by extension, going back to the assessing department, Director Kleiner, is one of her responsibilities is supervisor of the assessing department. And logically, we have no authority over her as far as being an employee of the city. The scope of our responsibilities are clearly defined under state law, the city charter, and city ordinances. So this is really not a venue to raise or discuss personnel issues, because if you do, there is nothing that we can do. It does not fall under our purview. So I would ask that the public refrain from discussing personnel with the board, since it's not an area of our authority. And if you do not comply with that request, I do not want to be in the uncomfortable position of having to interrupt you or having to deny you of the time that you have remaining on your 5 minutes of public comment. So I hope everyone will cooperate. I hope everybody is clear on that. And at this time, I would recognize IT to allow the first member of the public to speak if there's anyone who's waiting to address the board. Is there anyone, do you know, Director Kleiner, is there anybody waiting to speak?
I do not see anyone. There's no one within the meeting unless anyone would like to raise their hand in the meeting. There's no residents that have joined.
All right. Okay. There is no unfinished business public comment. Okay, comments by board members. Are there any comments by board members?
No,
No.
All right. So is there a motion to go into non-public session for two reasons? First, to discuss matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this board, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to include any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy, if based on inability to pay or poverty of the applicant pursuant to RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, parenthetical C. Second, under 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, parenthetical L, for the consideration of legal advice provided by legal counsel, either in writing or orally, to one or more members of the public body, even where legal counsel is not present.
so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I'll call the roll. Mr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Let the record show that we have entered non-public at 9:28 a.m.